It's Spoilerin time, folks. And if you've learned nothing over the years, learn this. Spoilerin time is the companion show to Cordkillers. Cordkillers is a great show. We figure out how to watch things. But then when we watch them, we want to talk about them somewhere. So we come here and we spoiler talk about the following shows. This week, we'll be talking about Picard, Season 2, Episode 6, the entire Season 1 of Severance, and the second episode of Moon Knight. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Heck yeah, dude. And speaking of people who have learned absolutely nothing, that's me. But you know who has learned things is our special guest, Willie Scott, W. Scottus 1.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for being with us, man. We really appreciate you joining us and watching 2/3 of the shows.
Yes.
2/3 of your attention, time, and effort, and your money. That's all we ask.
Yes, if you want to back us at the 2/3 level, head to patreon.com/Cordkillers. Let's start with Moon Knight, Season 1, Episode 2. And Brian, we always start with your take, but Summon the Suit has caused Bryce to do an about face or some kind of face.
I was
I'm
about
not
to
sure
say,
what kind of face.
I think in this case, you and I are pretty closely aligned. The wild card. Normally, I try to take the wild card role, not on Moon Knight. On Moon Knight, we got Bryce Castillo.
Last week, here was why I figured out why I didn't like last week. Last week I was very frustrated with Moon Knight because it felt like nobody really wanted to do the story we were doing. It was just a haunted house ride with a bunch of Egyptian jackals everywhere. The secret. I've got the pro tip for enjoying episodes 1 and 2 of Moon Knight. Ready?
Weed.
I've got 2 tips for you for enjoying Moon Knight episode 1 and 2.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
No, seriously. If you understand English, the audio descriptions make Moon Knight a good show. Like this show needs a narrator because it is a fairy tale and it is not the big national treasure thing that it wants to be. It's a fairy tale and it needs a narrator saying he couldn't believe nobody stepped on his sand, because otherwise it's just like you're being really dumb right now and I don't understand why you're thinking. What you're thinking.
So this is a little bit of the insight into why, even when I could perfectly hear an episode of a thing, I still like the closed captions on, because it gives a little bit of context and it clarifies things. Because oftentimes when people are talking, like I'll be especially. For example, there's another show we're about to talk about where I hear nonsense, and it's only in the second verse of it that I realize that they're quoting scripture. And so it's like it's this mental effort, and I would prefer to just kind of understand, like, from the beginning. Now, we've previously talked about how Netflix does audio descriptions of the visual elements so well that it's practically an audiobook. You are patient zero on Disney Plus. Mm-hmm. Are they good?
They're good. Yeah, they're very good. And they feel exactly like the same as the Netflix ones, where they are. It's like you're listening to an audiobook that has visual elements to it, and that perspective of like, hey, like you don't have to pay as much attention to it. Just sit, here's your roller coaster for 40 minutes. Just sit around for the ride. I was able to better set my expectations for the show and really be less critical of it, because I think that was what I needed. I just needed to sit back and he pondered very precariously about the painter's tape he put on his door, and then it didn't go anywhere. What the?
Spider-Bite Zero says it's literally the same narrator as the Netflix Marvel movies or TV shows, which is my patient zero when I was listening to him describe, with fists like ham hocks pounding. He relentlessly smashes Daredevil in the face. Daredevil, grimacing, gathers his courage and
gosh, does that help a lot?
Right?
I mean, just like a comic book would have a narrator or a stage directions, panel. This show really benefits from having that. Just like, hey, tell me what emotion you're supposed to be giving here, because you're really visually, you're fine. It's expensive. You're doing an expensive show, but you're really not emoting the most.
Yeah, Moon Knight is one of those series that, like, because I put so much effort into watching this and paying attention to every detail. And like, you're absolutely right. It's like, in many ways, it's almost better if you just lean back, watch it, and just enjoy the show, right?
Yeah, and it made this episode, I think, very very enjoyable, which is not my decision, but like, yeah, I liked this, him fighting with Steven, and the suit gag where he's like, I need a suit, and he puts on a 3-piece suit, and like all of that stuff plays really well if you just don't care as much.
But before we turn everything over to Tom, nope, I forgot my point. What's up, Tom?
Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, so that was my point. Is if you forget your points a lot, I guess you need visual aids and audio aids and things. I'm old fashioned. I just look at the show and observe.
No. I do remember my point, which was my question to Bryce was, boy, oh boy, did Bryce hate our protagonist in the first episode.
Yeah.
But now that he is trapped and in a very unpleasant space, and Mark Spector is saying, yeah, you're going to be in a very unpleasant space. Bye. Does that make you sympathetic for him at all? Or does that change your hatred of him at all?
I think I don't think my opinion on him as a character has changed. I think my understanding of where to fit him into the show has changed. I didn't like him last week because I felt like, oh, this is supposed to be a very serious, almost well, not realistic because it's about a sleepwalking Egyptian god, but but it feels like it's supposed to be a little more prestige than it is, and really he's just kind of the goofy English guy who's got an American persona, and all fiddlesticks, isn't that so crazy? Because I feel like they really do a good job of trying to be like, you ever hear, the hypothetical of like, hey, if you had a time machine, what would you do? And everyone says they would go back in time and kill baby Hitler.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you just try to make Hitler's life a little better so he didn't go and do all that stuff? Wouldn't you try and like...
It depends on whether or not you subscribe to the great man theory of history, but that's neither here nor there.
In any case, but that's not even in the conversation. This show is all about like, do we kill people before or after they jaywalk across the street? And
that's actually a pretty good question. I mean,
it's the what's the Philip K. Dick movie that
Minority
Tom
Report.
Cruise Minority Report
Pre-crime
question. I and I don't say that to denigrate it. I mean, I think it's still a fascinating question. If you know, quote unquote, that someone's going to commit a crime, should you let them, or should you stop them before they do it? Which case they haven't done it.
So I have a question for the whole round table. Did Disney misstep by not releasing episodes 1 and 2 simultaneously?
Yes.
How much better would this have been?
Episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4 simultaneously.
Yeah. Oh, no wonder.
And I watched. Okay. Yeah, I watched episode 1 and 2 like basically back to back. Yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
So again, our binge theory is even more confirmed with anecdotal, precise scientific evidence.
I had to go back and look at the description to realize, like, okay, what exactly was in episode 2? And I was like, that's it? That's all it was in episode 2? Like, I remembered more being there because I watched them back to back.
This series requires so much work to understand, and that's what takes me out of series a lot of times. Like, if I have to do a lot of work to understand what is going on here, I'm out. Like, I don't like that.
I would say that it switches lanes too often because it's subtle and then it is grossly obvious. And I think that Bryce has the right solution. If you turn on visual descriptions in audio, then all of a sudden you're in one lane. Everything is obvious and it's being spelled out for you. Yeah. And then that way it's not unsettling to switch lanes.
Yeah, I will absolutely give that a try when episode 3 comes out. Like 100%.
It completely changed the way that I approached the episode I wasn't particularly looking for. I intended to watch episode 1 again anyway, just to give it a refresher, but having those audio descriptions on really made it a lot better. I mean, not because I needed it spelled out for me, but because this is a show that would have done well with a narrator. This is a show.
Well, and all kidding aside, those descriptions they need to be rich for the people who don't see the action, so that it's compelling. And so of course that's going to emphasize. It's going to add something to it. I think that makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
All right, folks. So that is Moon Knight, season 1, episode 2. I'd almost say that maybe don't watch Moon Knight until episodes are all out. I think it might be better that way. We'll see.
I mean, and we've talked about this before. Like binging appears to, in our unscientific research, be universally better in all respects than watching week over week.
Especially for a show like these are not complicated shows. I'm sorry, these are not complicated shows.
Yep.
I know what's going to happen.
Yep.
I don't need to wait 7 days.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's Moon Knight, season 1, episode 2. So Willie's going to duck out for a second while we spoil Picard, season 2, episode 6, where we pick up. Honestly, Brian, I forgot that the party ended for the reason that it did. Until I started watching this. I'm like, oh, right. That's why they didn't get in, because they were waiting for Agnes, who got arrested on purpose so they could hack in. And so we see that whole scene go down where Agnes gives control to the Borg Queen, as we all knew she would, in order to do the thing that she needed to do to get everybody into the party.
Look, it's a miracle that anything gets made. This was bad. It's and by bad I mean it is the least good episode of this season of Picard. It was who felt that tension that Picard might die, that they kept hammering home before each fake commercial break on this streaming service.
She's here. Yeah, what was with the flash scenes? Because I really thought they were leading somewhere. Or actually, I really didn't think they were leading somewhere, but I was really hoping I was wrong, that they weren't leading anywhere, and they really didn't lead anywhere.
Now keep in mind, as I've said before, I have a soft spot for mashups and remixes and all that stuff. I understood the conceit. It's like they're going to do the flash forward and flash back thing. Also, I feel absolutely no tension for losing the titular character of the show, which is problematic. I was upset by the totally fake ad breaks and the fake tension between it. I was bummed that my least favorite plot line of the romance between Jurati and the Borg Queen is somehow the star of this episode, because outside of that and this brief kind of shining red dressed dance number thing that she does, outside of that, what do you got?
I mean, honestly, that actor has a good voice, but I definitely went, oh my God, she's singing.
This is the first time it's ever occurred to me that it's like, why is it all these actors have such good voices? And then the cynic in my brain says, because of autotune, dummy. And then all of a sudden it corrupted, like going back to Ted Lasso, there's a singing song at a funeral. And I was like, I bet they autotune that. I bet they autotune everything. And then,
I know that the woman in Ted Lasso is a singer. Like that's a well-established thing. I don't know that the woman playing Agnes is. I didn't seem auto-tuned to me, but
and that's of course what good auto-tuning is.
Anyway, that's not even the point of this. The point was like, I didn't need to hear her sing. Even if she's a great singer, I didn't need to hear her sing right then. That was weird.
And yet, okay, so the fact that we're talking about a girl who sings a song during a blackout with the Borg Queen is the best part of this episode, because all you got besides that,
I kind of enjoyed Dr. Soong and Picard's face-off for a brief moment. And then it became slapstick.
That is correct. It was almost tense. And then outside of that, we have what? The fake drama of Picard dying that nobody believed. We have a bunch of people standing around the comatose body and Jeep Chop Click Clop techno babble. I'm going to go into his brain, but not this episode. Stick around. And then outside of that, we got a rousing speech of, hello, I'm a random person you've never met before. You should go to Europa. The end. I got hit by a car.
That
I really didn't care for that.
I actually bought her saying we are more than a security guard. If the rest of the episode hadn't been so silly, that you might have bought it too. Because I definitely tried to wall off and go like, all right, Picard's gravitas, Patrick Stewart's gravitas shows up and starts talking to this lady who's grasping at straws. I bet that works. I bet that goes down that way. The thing is, it got colored by everything else around it.
There was one truly shocking moment when the daughter of Soong opened up his computer and found a previous version of her and another and another and another. And at first I was like, what's happening? And then they spent 45 more seconds showing more iterations, birthdays, lots of dying other names, and they all look like her. And I was like, what's going on? And about the 2-minute mark, it occurred to me, oh my God, the obviously evil guy is making genetic offspring. That was sarcasm.
But we knew that
already. Which
so
makes me question why they spent 2 minutes showing it.
It was a little long. I'm definitely gonna agree with you there. To me, that was more of the like her discovering it, right? The point of that scene should have been her discovering what we all knew, right? And her horror at it. I don't know if she needed to take that long to discover it.
It was extended.
Mm-hmm. It certainly was.
Oh my God! So play it again, but from a different perspective. Still on board. Still love the shuffle.
Yeah. Same here. Same here.
But this is the weakest of the entire season.
This feels like the one you'd need to binge through, and it would be just fine.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, well, that was weird she sang, but all right, where are we going next? That is Picard season 2, episode 6. Someone wake Willie from his slumber because we're heading into Severance, season 1. We're going to talk about the entire season. Ben Stiller, executive produced, a genius series here. I enjoyed every single second of it.
I would like to not talk first. Bryce, what did you think of this?
I think this is one of the best shows on TV.
Full stop.
Yes.
It's fantastic. There was an interview with the creator about why they ended the season where they do, which is in the middle of all of the rising action and right as all of the innies get shut off.
It was agonizing to watch.
Yeah.
And agonizing to find out that was the last one of the season.
So many good surprises too, right? Like things you would not expect. Mm-hmm. I know that one of the things that shocked me the most was the main character gets sent to sort of like a therapy session almost. And then they're watching from the feed and you find out, oh, wait a minute. She's
his wife.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That was a complete shocker to me. I was like mind blown.
This is a hard dance to carry through to completion, and we have yet to see if they will carry it through to completion. But what they did in season 1 was a great job of having a minimalistic world. Even outside of Lumen, we don't have a lot going on. It's the main character and his sister and the next door neighbor, and that's about it, right? And the sister's husband and all that. Inside, it's very sparse, literally, right? There's 4 desks in a big empty white room and all that. And so they did a great job of using that to set up questions and answer 3/4 of them, but add another question. So that you're always feeling satisfied, like it's progressing. Like, ooh, we found out a mystery. We found out there's other people work here. What is their life like outside? But then they keep adding new questions. Who are they? Why is the boss also the next door neighbor? Some of which got answered and some of which didn't. That's always a hard situation to finish because you want to finish with good answers, but not the answers feel forced. But I'm incredibly optimistic that they'll be able to pull it off.
Everybody is great in this show. The characters are great. They're well written. The set design, when it's minimalist on purpose. And I don't feel like we've really busted out into the wider world. And maybe we never will. But I mean, there are essentially 3 places. There's Lumen, the house, and I don't know, streets, basically. To me, if we're going to talk pure acting ability, the actor who plays Mr. Milchick is next level. Like next level.
Trammell Tillman. I just happened to have the IMDb page pull up right then. Yeah, Bravo.
Next level insincere smiling, next level menacing and awful. And then he does this like clearly relaxed jazz in the moment dancing. I mean, it's supernatural and only codifies him. I mean, my goodness, I was blown away. It was incredible.
And the fact that he goes from like, like, oh yeah, he's the happy, upbeat security guard that you pass by in the halls and are so happy to see him because he always has a smile on his face, to go from that to like, I will end you. Like, this is not what you are supposed to be doing right now. You get back to your cubicle. Amazing.
Also, kudos on pulling off the most difficult of narrative treats, which is a genuine surprise, because it was only around episode 8 that I realized, oh, wait, we're going to do this heist where they're going to wake up on the outside. Oh, well, I know what Mark's life is, and we got a glimpse into Dylan's life, and I don't know.
See some of Irving.
I guess we'll see a little bit of Irv, but I really know nothing about Helly, and I'm like, it's awfully late in the series for me to know nothing about Helly, and then it was great.
What we knew about Helly was incredibly intriguing. They were thanking her for doing what she did. So you knew, like, okay, is she a test subject of some kind? Is it an investigation? Like, why did they thank her for that? Because they did that early on. They mentioned thanking her, and her being a special person. The board talking about how she was special to be doing this. Had no clue that she would. I kind of figured she must be from inside Lumen. Had no clue that she was going to be Kier's daughter, basically.
So I love that they made Irv so one-dimensional and uninteresting, and then they added a second dimension with him being romantically inclined to what's his name? Bert. And then all of a sudden,
oh my God, Bert and Irving.
Oh yeah, no, I picked up on that.
Oh my God,
Bert and Irving. Yeah.
Too cute.
But when we get a glimpse of Irving's outside world, that sets up, whatever the testing room is, that image that he's haunted by, that he paints over and over and again. But then when he wakes up, yes, his core drive was to find Bert, and he, finds out that he's too late. Bert's already got a life outside of Lumen. But more importantly, I was fascinated by the trappings of his world. Like, do you think that Irv was a private investigator who intentionally was going in thinking that he would be able to maybe penetrate past the wall of Severance?
Oh,
because we see all of the tracking that he's done, and the names, and in the secret compartment and all that stuff.
It took me a second to realize, like, oh, that was already there.
Correct.
Because otherwise, all we've seen of Irving is that he paints the hallway.
And he walks his dog.
Yeah, I think what he is doing, if I'm projecting, and this is me making stuff up, I can totally imagine Irving being a private investigator who wants to track down and figure out what's up with Lumen.
I don't know if he's a private investigator. I get the sense that he is definitely trying to figure out what's going on inside Lumen, but the obsessive painting implies that it's, like, maybe he's a former private investigator, but it's like it's an all-consuming passion for him for some reason.
Or maybe he's trying to, because as a matter of fact, in his retirement ceremony, the videotape of Bert says, I'm sure at some subconscious level I have good feelings about all of you, even though I don't consciously remember any of your names or faces or how many of you there are or whatever. Like, it seemed to me that what Irving was doing with his painting was obsessively trying to tap into that just below the surface memory, and he was only able to get that one image.
I got the impression that he was painting what he saw the last moment before he severed.
Interesting.
It was like and trying to paint details to see if he could glean any more from what little memory he had. He's obviously a very passionate person, right? Because he's a Kier enthusiast inside. So maybe he was a Kier enthusiast who was spurned.
Oh, in fact, I would
think it was the opposite.
Exactly. I think that hate and love are the same energy, just in opposite directions. So
yes, obviously, but I'm also jumping to the and maybe the reason he has the opposite energy now is because he was once a true believer.
Oh, and so
and if you think about it, that's how all the characters are, right? Like that's how they get to that point where, okay, we're gonna perform this operation to try to reverse whatever is going on with us and try to find our out selves, like our outies, right?
Yeah, and for the British in the audience, that's outie with a T, not Audi like the car.
Right, right.
Can we talk about the waffle party?
Yeah.
Or we could talk about the fact
it did involve waffles.
It was a party.
So
yeah.
There were several parties.
Yeah, I want to mention like the dinner party where there's no dinner. Like, I've never seen that. Like,
oh no, that was in my mind, that was like, we have to establish that this guy is silly and laughable in the outside world for his new age hippie
pretentious
stuff. Yeah,
upper crusty friends who do trendy things.
Gotcha.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yeah, and then but meanwhile, I like to think that I don't get uncomfortable very easily, but somebody decided to really sexualize the actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf video into a segment to make it uncomfortable for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's very weird, right? Because like in the world of the innies, like that's probably the closest they're gonna get to sex.
All the action they get,
which is doing the painting of him whipping the four woes with the 9-tailed virtues, and
also it was a weird set off that you had all these perks that were super innocent. You get a finger trap. Oh, you get a fun dance party. You get a waffle party. It suddenly took a turn.
Yeah,
it was not expected to go that direction.
It's like it's like they put Eyes Wide Shut and preschool Bible class in a blender.
Right,
and that's what came out.
Like, it was like the preschool Bible class was like, well, at level 1, you get a sticker. At level 2, you get a free Bible. And at level 3, you get masked people with whips nakedly sexually arousing you. You know?
Mm-hmm. What was everybody's like biggest moment of the season? Because for me, it was when Miss Casey is talking to Mark in in that last wellness session and saying, I have only been alive for 100 hours, and the 8 hours that I spent with you all was the best I've ever, literally ever experienced. It is so heart-wrenching to realize that she was not just a machine, basically, but she was like not even alive or awake most of the time.
A step back from that, I actually thought it was pretty clever that they were intentionally obscuring the face of his wife, and I bought in. I got totally tricked and fooled, and I thought, oh, this is wonderful. We're never going to see her face because it doesn't matter what her face is. She's
Right.
a MacGuffin. Yeah. She's the thing he lost. That's, oh my God, they showed her face and we've seen her.
Yeah.
And like I full on have goosebumps right now remembering that moment.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
And it was like just after the episode where like the Innie Mark and Gemma, they like have to cross each other in the hallway, and they have to do, it's like an old performance art thing, but the idea of squeezing two people through the same hallway and which way do they turn to fit through. And it was such a great reveal.
Also, I loved the bit where they like, you know, the sort of cargo cult aspect of finding the book and Rickon's words becoming so important to all of them.
Page 197 is lit.
he wakes, and then Mark wakes up at Rickon's reading. And
well,
so
and I
gives
love
him the heartfelt reaction of Mark the Innie that Rickett is like, you're effing with me, man. Come on.
I do love that they didn't waste too much time. They gave credit to us, the audience, and credit to Mark S. When he put pieces together that it's like, that's my sister, that's her husband, that's the baby. Oh my God, I'm brother-in-law with the author of this book, and that's probably how it happened and all that stuff. I have a very silly minor note. You know, when you do production, you notice production things. There's that moment when Mark's sister has the baby in the chest holder or whatever, and she's at the top of a hill. There's some like dormant trees behind her, and she sees the state senator's wife down there. And during that time, there's a brief moment like a hawk passes for all of, I kid you not, 1.5 seconds. But in that 1.5 seconds, some sound designer felt the need to put a in there. And then later, there's a morning scene that I'm certain was shot in the same place. And I'm certain is the same bird, big ass bird, but it's morning. So the same bird goes, chip, 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 chip. It's amazing.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I think Britt Lauer deserves props. The whole freaking cast does, but being able to play a convincing Helly and convincing outie Helly as well.
And by the way, how confusing we're rooting for a romance between Mark and Helly, and then we find out that his wife is still alive, and I'm like, oh, kiss her. Oh, but don't. I don't know.
And that's the whole point of this story is like when you sever the personality, have you created a new person?
Yeah.
Right? This is one of the dilemmas of that.
Because
Mark S isn't cheating.
Yeah, because you've also got the other I completely forgot her name, but the other woman that he goes on a date with too, and like
Alexa.
Yeah, Alexa, and just set off everyone's Amazon
shopping list.
No, but she, but like she has that relationship and definitely sees when Mark comes back with like the bloody stained clothes and everything.
I don't think she saw the blood-stained clothes.
Yeah.
But Bryce was asking, what is the moment? That's a fairly wonderfully brutal moment of the surprise murder of the security guard. And they very cleverly, or not cleverly, they very skillfully obscure the horror of a bashed-in skull, and Mark very clearly conveys how horrific it is, and then the amount of blood as they drag at the thing, and that moment he's about to vomit, and Alexa's what's her name? We don't know her name. Is like, don't you dare! There's DNA in there. That was for me when the hard left turn of this show, when it got brutal and visceral and very real.
Because she only had that one appearance, I want to say. I guarantee you season 2 she is going to have a much bigger role in season 2. Like, I would not be surprised.
Watch her die in the very first frame.
I was about to say. I mean, as a stand-in for the Resistance, I would not be surprised at all if she got recast. But it did.
She dies in the Snapchat off-season series that they use to prep you for.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought a funny little thing. So this takes place. It seems to take place in a contemporary time to today. It is.
Sure.
There's smartphones. There's DVD film stuff.
Yeah, in the not too distant future, if not exactly the present.
One thing that's really interesting is we do see smartphones, but it's been a thing in the news that like if you have an iPhone in your program, only the good guys are allowed to have iPhones, and everybody else has to have generic phones or other brands. And there are no branded smartphones in this. But there is a sequence near the end of that last episode, the severed story, that looks a lot like an Apple keynote with all the black and white photos, and it looks like when they do tributes to like Martin Luther King. And
complete side note, by the way, in that aspect, I'd like to think that Apple signed on to this project because Apple themselves would love to have something like this in the real life where the Apple employees do not remember anything after they leave the Apple campus.
I think that would be a bad look for the company, Apple.
A real life.
Allow me to respectfully disagree with your thesis.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and honestly, I think we tend to exaggerate how much companies interfere. And not to say they don't, but I think we tend to exaggerate it and look for it. So I don't know if the lack or if that episode, if that phone showing up means anything really, but it might.
Yeah.
So can we speculate about motivations, specifically Miss Selvig or Cobell on the inside?
Mhm.
She is clearly defying protocol in front of Mr. Milchick by allowing MDR to go explore and discover things. And for a while, I was floating the theory that she's a true believer of Kier, and she's also the oldest insider that we've seen until the last episode. So I was wondering if maybe, because it's pretty clear that Severance is a fairly recent procedure that is being tried on by Lumen. And I wondered if secretly she wasn't rooting for MDR to take down Severance in service of Kier's writings.
I think the last episode betrays that.
It does. It does
because
appear
she
to
works
break it
so
but-
hard to stop it.
Correct.
Right.
I think that if there is a weakness in this story, it's that they fire her. I understand why the story needed that to happen for it to end in the way it did, and I loved it.
Mhm.
But I feel like Lumen is so careful about everything else that they might fire her, but they wouldn't let her get away. They wouldn't let her become a loose cannon.
Which
Which ends up working in their favor that they did, but I wouldn't have expected her to live long, honestly, as a fired employee.
Right.
I'm still not ready to totally discard the possibility that she works with our four heroes of MDR at some point. Oh, also, speculation going into season 2. The innies, their last memory will be on the outside. I can't imagine that Mark's sister is going to let him go back to work for any reason, full stop.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine that Helena, Helly's outside character, is going to definitely go back in and force her to whatever. Not sure if Dylan ever leaves the property since he's been caught.
Well, MDR's done. Those 4 people are not going to be allowed to work together anymore.
Correct,
right?
but
So it's all about what steps is Lumen going to take.
What? Here's my question: is the innies have had their consciousness snapped shut? When it opens, what do they see? What is the next thing their innies see?
I guarantee you they're probably going to play the aspect of, because they definitely played it where they would go into the elevator for the end of the day, and then like literally the elevator doors would open and it's literally the next day. It's going to be one of those things where they have that flash sequence of like everyone is where they're at, and then it's like a flash sequence of, oh, they're back in the office again.
I don't think they're back in the office the way we've seen them, though.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I don't think Lumen lets that happen.
Although, hold on,
I think you're right about Dylan not being allowed to leave. I like the idea of we replay the 3 outie experiences where they're aware, and then the moment that Dylan lets go, we snap to whatever has happened to them since.
although
Which would mean I think they bring Mark in. I think they bring Irving in. For some sort of interview debriefing, and Helena probably just voluntarily sends Helly in.
although
So that might be a guess is some kind of interrogation or wellness or some other weird thing.
if this were the Severance writers' room, I would definitely pitch after everything we've seen. The biggest confusing mystery of all would be the beginning of season 2 is they're back to work and they don't have any idea. Like Mark is thinking, how on earth could I be back here after what happened? Helly is thinking the same. I mean, that's got to be how they open season 2, and then they reveal that mystery over time.
Or it's a situation of they try to fix the error of whatever happened, like a glitch in the matrix. Like they got away, and what can we do to reverse everything that they know up until this point and try to get them back on the right track, so to speak.
I mean, there's certainly a case to be made that all three of them, Helena for sure, but even Mark would be like, what are you talking about, sis? You're exaggerating, because he has no recollection of any of it. He's suspicious, but that probably thinks like it's probably not as bad as she said. Let me send him back in to see what happens. I could see that happening. I could see maybe Irving does that too, because he wants to find out more about. Well, he doesn't remember. There's real reasons for them to all be gone back in. I sort of like the idea of the fake out of like they wake back up and they're all four back in MDR and they're talking to each other. It doesn't. It feels. I don't know. It feels too done. It's like, oh, okay, but I know they're not okay. So I don't know that I would go that direction.
May I remind you that we just spent 5 minutes coming up with questions we would have, and the best and an important thing in writing is to not answer questions directly,
Yeah,
but instead
sure,
open up new questions.
But just showing me all four of them back in MDR, I would be disappointed with that. I'll be honest, as a viewer, I would want to be surprised more than that.
Okay.
So maybe they're back in the office and they don't know why, but it's not just back at work.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's
it's definitely not going to be.
Maybe they're in 4 interrogation cells.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
No. I mean, but okay, whatever. We're writing a show that we don't work for. Whatever. Pay.
Yeah.
Pay me,
we're not
Apple.
doing this for free.
Yeah.
No, go away. You are absolutely right, Brian, that if they do this right, and I have every confidence they will, they are going to start the season proposing a bunch of questions. They're not going to answer them.
Yeah, well, or at least they're gonna that'll be the called shot at the beginning, is that you'll get answers, and we got a lot of answers but not as many as we'd like, and so called shot will fill in the gaps. That's their quest.
Have you guys come up with or heard any theories about Severance? I've heard one that I thought makes some sense.
Go on.
All right,
Okay.
lay it on me.
The idea being that what Lumen is trying to do with the severance procedure is to sort through candidates that Lumen has maybe a limited time access to. Those would be the files that the MDR people are sorting through. They're looking for, someone found out that when they categorize numbers and you see there are categories in the different boxes, those 4 categories match up with the 4 woes. Kier's 4 woes, or no, woe is one of them. The 4 sins, basically. And so the idea is like, maybe what Lumen is doing is they're able to grab vulnerable people for a short amount of time, maybe like with Gemma, Mark's wife, who might have really been in an accident. They have a limited time to like capture those people and guess if they're going to be a good match for Kier, and then sever that person, indoctrinate that new personality as, oh, you're Kier. Hey, you're Kier. Check it out. And then get rid of the Audi, and congrats, you've got Kier living in a new body. They named the town after him.
That seems very convoluted.
Which is what most theories are, to be fair.
I kind of feel like trying to figure out what Lumen's doing is like trying to figure out the MacGuffin in a Hitchcock film. I'm not sure we ever need to know what Lumen's really doing. Yeah. I feel like we could only be disappointed by what Lumen's actually doing.
Yeah.
When I say actually doing, I don't mean like the secret of what's really behind Severance and Helly and all that. I mean like what those numbers are on the MDR machine. I don't think we need to know what that is. I don't think that necessarily plays into anything.
I don't think they're important. I don't think that there's anything that we've seen that those numbers are actually important, other than people saying that it's mysterious important.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. That's the theory. And
all right. No, nothing wrong with the theory.
I'm very, very glad that they've already renewed it for another season. I'm very excited.
Yes.
Oh,
any other thoughts on Severance season 1?
Here's a new thought. It's great.
That's not a new thought. That's the best thought, because you're right.
I must have forgotten.
That is Severance Season 1. Folks, what do you think of Severance Season 1? Cordkillers@gmail.com. Let us know. You get these episodes early if you're a patron. So if you're like, wait, why didn't I get this episode a couple days early? It's because you were needing to become a patron. Patreon.com/Cordkillers. Thanks again, Willie Scott, for hanging out with us. Remind folks once again what you got going on.
Oh, absolutely. So, and I would actually point people to this because Spoilerin Time is very much a series on 3 separate things. If you want a discussion on one movie where we go in depth on it, cinemavention.com is the website to go to. And I have not seen a lot of movies in my lifetime. And the premise is I'm watching it for the first time. My guest has seen it 1,000 times. So honestly, if you like Spoilerin Time, I think you'll like Cinemavention a lot.
Excellent. Thank you, Willie Scott. W. Scott is 1. Next week, folks, we will not be in time for Better Call Saul because it comes on Monday. So we will be watching an episode of Miami Vice starring the one, the only, Willie Nelson. That's episode 7 of season 3 called El Viejo. We'll also be talking about episode 3 of Moon Knight and episode 7 of season 2 of Picard. We'll spoil you then.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.